Um, Good evening, virtual visitors. My name is Naya Hardaway. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the African American History Initiative here at the Missouri Historical Society. Welcome to our program and thank you for joining us tonight. Before we get started, I would like to thank our members, donors, and supporters from the Zoo Museum Tax District. Welcome to the 2021 EHOC Fair Housing Conference. First, I'd like to introduce the moderator for this evening's event, Will Jordan. Chaplain Will Jordan has served as the Executive Director of the Metropolitan St. Louis Equal Housing Opportunity Council since 2002. Chaplain Jordan regularly consults with attorneys, HUD officials, U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. attorneys, and Missouri Attorney General on behalf of EHOC concerning active investigations, lawsuits, and settlement negotiations of fair housing cases. Tonight's program will run for about 90 minutes. The program for which will be included in the chat. Please don't forget to sign in as you enter the webinar. We'll be placing a sign in the chat. For your convenience, you can submit questions through the Q&A button in your toolbar. And in order to streamline the process, we would prefer for you to wait until the end to ask all of your questions. And there will also be a panel presentation where you can ask questions directly to the panelists. Please know that we will do our best to answer all questions, but we may not have time to get to everyone. We are proud to partner with EHOC this year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chaplain Will.
All right, I am so excited to be here. I feel like we're having a fireside chat about environmental justice and fair housing, and I'm really excited to introduce our speaker. But before I do that, I want to introduce to you the other staff members of the Metro St. Louis Equal Housing Opportunity Council. Elizabeth Risch is the Assistant Director. Kalila Jackson is our Senior Staff Attorney. Katina Combs is the Director of Testing. Nia Foster is the Fair Housing Specialist. Marissa Cohen is the Education Coordinator. Glenn Burley is the Community Engagement Specialist. Lauren Versman is a Staff Attorney. Melissa Shaw is the Centerville Program Assistant, and she will be moderating the panel later on in the program. For our Eviction Defense Program, where we deal with landlord-tenant issues and advocate on behalf of tenants to keep evictions off their records and try to get them some help to stay in their places. Thomas Pearson, or we call him TJ, is a staff attorney. Saul Glist is the tenant advocate, a legal assistant. Hannah Clark is the legal fellow. Jason Foss is a legal fellow. And both of them are attorneys as well. Melissa Pascia is the tenant advocate. And Clarice Lipsy is the tenant advocate. Our board of directors, Nate Johnson is the president. Dennis Leverly is the Vice President and President Emeritus, one of the original founding members of the EHOC Board of Directors. Eric Matkins from Regions Bank is the Secretary, and Amy Wymer is the Treasurer, and she is the Executive Director of Paraquat. Valerie Bell is an attorney. Ben Bozzovic is an attorney. Gail Brown is a real estate agent and broker. Sam Henderson is an attorney. Valerie Marion is a resident of Centerville and advocate. Vernon Mitchell, Dr. Vernon Mitchell is a professor of African Americans curations. And Jeanette Mott Oxford is an advocate and legislative consultant. And Ed Wards is a retired official of the HUD Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity Office, the past director of that office, and now is on our board. I want to thank the Missouri Historical Society, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, our partners, especially Region 7. Shout out to Region 7 in Kansas City. And the Joyce Foundation for help supporting the Centerville project that we're working on in conjunction with the panelists that you're going to be speaking with later on today. And I am so excited about what our program today. I want to give a special acknowledgement to our platinum sponsors for the program. Without the sponsors, the programs that we operate on a regular basis could not happen because it takes finances in order for all of these programs to move forward. And so we want to thank the platinum sponsors for that today. In particular, I want to thank Karen Dunn at the St. Louis Association of Realtors. She's a longtime partner and friend of Fair Housing in St. Louis, and I want to thank you. Stiefel Bank and Trust with Emily Callahan. I want to thank you as well. I want to thank First Bank with Jesse Wise and Stacy Clay. They are partners and they are platinum sponsors this year, and we're pretty excited about having them on board. Lindo Bank with Leon Hall, Midwest Bank Center with my friend Alex Fenoy, and also Regis Bank with Eric Matkins, who is vice president, a regional vice president of community affairs and he's also a board member of VHOC and a past recipient of our Open Door Awards. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you to some, and I don't even know how to say that, but anyway, I want to introduce to you Catherine Flowers. She is a friend, she is an advocate, she is familiar with the issues that are going on regionally here. She has met on several occasions with the residents who are really who we're talking about today. So right now we're kind of in the third person, but later on we're going to have first person experience to talk about exactly what's going on and the perspective of even how COVID has affected the efforts to try to establish some normal living conditions where there are abnormal living conditions for our fellow citizens in Centerville, Illinois. So right now, Catherine Flowers has a tremendous resume. She is a MacArthur Fellow and the author of the book Waste, among many numerous other accolades. I can tell you that she is currently working with the new Biden administration as an official, and she's very, very excited about the possibility of being able to make a difference for people like the residents of Centerville, because she's able to get a voice through her advocacy and through her connections now with the Biden administration. So we're excited to have Catherine Flowers on board. And we know that this is the issue that is really going to be facing us going forward in the 21st century, that we have to deal with it as a country. Catherine Flowers, thank you so much. And I am giving the floor to you.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I wish I was there in person so I can have some St. Louis barbecue. So I said I would do this with a promise that I'd get some, either if it was sent to me. But anyway, it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to kind of clarify something. I'm not really an official within the Biden administration, but I serve on the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council, and that council advises all federal agencies about environmental justice. And I serve with environmental justice advocates from around the country, because recently President Biden's team released a plan that I'm going to talk about a little later, called the American Jobs Plan, and it deals with infrastructure. And infrastructure is what brought me to Centerville, to see the infrastructure issues that were happening there. And infrastructure is actually what brought me to the attention of the Biden administration, because of the issues around wastewater that I have been trying to bring to light around the country. But I want to start off with a little history. I used to be a history teacher. I am from Lowndes County, Alabama, which is located between Selma and Montgomery. Of course, most people know about the Selma to Montgomery March. And in Lowndes County, a lot of people, actually, I have relatives that actually left Lowndes County and went to the St. Louis area. But a lot of people think, when they look at history, that the only folk that were suffering from discrimination were people that were living in the South, in the deep South. Well, that's not true, because one of the things that created a lot of problems in northern cities were racial covenants around housing. And I know that the title of this is Fair Housing and Environmental Justice. So a lot of the issues that people are suffering now has a lot to do with those racial covenants that were put in place. And recently I wrote a piece that's being considered for publication, um, that that talks about um, that talks about what I call sanitation apartheid. And with the sanitation apartheid, clearly a lot of communities have been left behind. So as we look at these issues around the country, and I'm going to talk about some of these other places, then of course I'm going to zero in on Centerville and talk about my trip to Centerville. And then of course I'm going to talk about the, I'm going to talk about what is happening on the federal level and how you should get ready for that. So I have, can everybody see me? I noticed, I saw in the chat where there were people questioning whether or not they can see me. So
I
I
can
guess,
certainly see you.
okay, so I guess everybody is good now. Thank you. So there, so in terms of the histories of these areas, a lot of areas throughout the U.S. and especially in the St. Louis area where people, there were racial covenants that prevented people from living in certain areas, certain parts of the city. Um, Here in Montgomery, where I live in Montgomery, Alabama. And even just recently, I was invited to be part of a conversation with a member of the city council, a representative of the mayor's office, and people from the water and sewer board to talk about the fact that there are people in the city limits. This is 2021. People living in the city limits of Montgomery on septic tanks and on-site septic. If you don't know what an on-site septic system is, it means you flush your toilet, it's treated on your property. And on-site septic systems are failing a lot in these areas. And that's largely because of the water tables are rising due to climate change, but also because some of these covenants, I believe, some of them written, some unwritten, that restricted Black people to certain, through red lines, restricted Black people to certain areas of the city, and they never got infrastructure in the first place. So in these areas, it wasn't surprising when they called me and they told me about the problems. I said, well, first of all, let's see where the sewer lines stop, because you have access to their information. And after we see where the sewer lines stop, let's see who lives there. Of course, I knew the answer, but I wanted them to do the research and verify what I already suspected. All of those homes that are within the city limits on the outside of, on the periphery, they're all Black communities, and they do not have access to sanitation, although the Water and Sewer Board provides water to them. In some cases, there are people living within 500 feet of a sewer main. So when we had the meeting with the sewer board, the people that were speaking on behalf of the sewer board basically said, well, when they built those homes, the developers should have put sewer there. We're not going to do it. But that is denying the history that I started off with. And that history, a lot of those communities are very old Black communities. And because they never were allowed to have access to sewer, now they're using the fact that the developers then put it there as another reason or another obstacle to prevent it. What does that mean? That means that their properties will not appreciate like they should. It means that they will not be able to recruit the kind of services to those areas that require water and sewer for them to be there. Something as simple as a pharmacy, or even being able to shop in their own neighborhoods without having to go somewhere else. And it'll also mean that they can never attract anything but dirty industry to come to those areas. So consequently, uh, that is another way in which these covenants are still existing today. When we look at places that suffered, there was a cold snap recently in the South that impacted places from Texas to Mississippi. And in Texas, because they have their own grid, the grid went out. When the grid went out, because of the cold weather, they couldn't put power into the state because they have their own independent grid. But it also meant they not only had not had power, people didn't have water. You don't have water, you can't flush your toilets. So consequently, a lot of people were suffering. The people that ended up, some of them ended up getting power again during that time. They got power bills that were in the thousands of dollars. The people that were denied that did not get access to power for a very long time were primarily in the same communities, those marginalized communities, and those communities of color. That was immigrant communities, poor communities, communities of color, communities where there were a lot of Black people. Let's fast forward to Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi. Recently, their water and sewer mains broke, and for a long time it looked like Flint because people had to take them bottled water, because for a long time, because the pipes that they had in the city Jackson. Now, Jackson is the capital of Mississippi, but I can tell you, I went to a HBCU, and I remember going to Jackson State because Jackson State was one of those places that, we enjoyed playing Jackson State because they had a really nice band. So I remember this year going to Jackson State, and when we stepped off the campus at Jackson State, one of the things that we noticed was, that in the Black community, you could see that the infrastructure was very different. The housing was very different, and this was right next to a university. So it wasn't surprising to see that Jackson ended up suffering recently because the infrastructure broke down. And when the infrastructure broke down, the people did not have access to what they needed to live, which was water that should have been coming through those pipes. And again, when I went to Centerville because in Lowndes County, Alabama, I had been pushing for a long time, talking about the fact that it wasn't just Lowndes County. It's like, or when people were talking about Flint, they want to always focus on one area, one city, like it's the only area that has that problem. And when I talked about Lowndes County, I've been working in Lowndes County since 2002, trying to address this issue. And what happens over and over again, people would come in, say that they had the solution, put in place these systems that would fail, and then we were right back where we started. In Lowndes County, Alabama, we have people that are living with raw sewage coming back into their homes. We have people that are living with their straight piping where they don't have anything to treat the sewage and it's out on top of the ground. And we've also learned that there are people with wastewater that are paying wastewater treatment fee, and the tanks have to be pumped 2 to 3 times a week to keep the sewage from coming back into their homes. So we continue to jump up and down about this. And when I was writing my book, I was contacted by people that were working with citizens of Centerville. And one of the things I wanted to do before I finished that book was to come to Centerville and see it for myself. I didn't want to describe what someone had told me. I wanted to see it for myself. And the residents were very generous in sharing their stories and letting me see what was outside of their homes as it relate to a failed wastewater treatment. And I made sure that when I wrote the book that I talked about Centerville too. And then later I had the opportunity to partner with The Guardian. And we were talking about The Guardian has a year-long project where they're looking at wastewater problems around the US. Because one of the things I talked about in the book was the fact that the US really doesn't know, the government really doesn't know who has failed wastewater systems and who doesn't. And what we wanted to do is to be able to identify that. I've been pushing it and pushing that message out there because we can't solve a problem that we don't officially recognize. And there are lots of communities throughout the United States that do not have adequate wastewater treatment, or they have failed wastewater systems. So when we started working with The Guardian, and we discussed what would be this first areas. They wanted to do the first story on Lowndes County. And I said, no, you should do it on Centerville. Because people always want to think that these problems only exist in the Deep South. But we got up north too. I think that one of the things that Malcolm X said, that any place south of the Canadian border was down south. And of course, when he said it at the time, people may not have understood it, but I know all of us understand that now. But that is also true when it comes to sanitation, because there has not been equality of access to sanitation or infrastructure. And the infrastructure that has gone into communities of color, into poor communities, have not been the best infrastructure. And it doesn't last. And they ended up blaming the people when it failed. And I'm sure that people in Centerville have heard that as well. More recently, I was engaged with a member of Congress who was writing legislation to um, to give people on-site systems funding so that they can get these systems. But my concern, the question I ask is, what kind of warranties are coming with these systems? Because oftentimes people come in, they rush in, they get the money, they put in place infrastructure, and they leave. Then they leave the burden on the town, or they leave the burden on the individual homeowner. And we have nothing to show that whether or not it works. You can't buy a tankless water heater without getting a warranty, a service warranty with it. If you buy an HVAC system, it comes with a warranty. Why do these systems that are vital to our public health not come with warranties? And that's one of the things that we're pushing. And so in the process, we're asking people to speak up and join us. The Guardian article on Centerville has shed a lot of light, and there are other people that have reached out to me that are not only going to Centerville, but other parts of Illinois, because I understand that Illinois and the St. Louis area are having lots of problems, and we need to make sure that this is raised up, because now we have an administration that seems to care about these issues. And with the American Jobs Plan, what has happened? When I accepted the invitation to speak, I was not a part of the WEJAC. It had not been formed. One of the things that the Biden administration promised that it would do is that it was going to establish this White House level advisory council that would advise um, all of the federal agencies about environmental justice issue, and looking at what was happening through the lens of environmental justice of all of these agencies. And President Biden issued an executive order uh, dealing with environmental justice and putting environmental justice at the center of everything, and making it also a component of the climate of their climate policy. I was fortunate to serve with the Biden Sanders Unity Task Force, and two of the people that served on that task force were Gina McCarthy, who is now the climate czar, and also former Secretary John Kerry, who is a climate envoy. And I will tell you that both of them are lifting up environmental justice. More recently, I actually did an interview on Instagram with someone from England, from the UK, was talking about some of the same issues that we've been discussing for years, about environmental justice issues that are even occurring there, and sanitation issues that are occurring there as well. And no surprise, similar communities. So they're lifting up environmental justice and these issues on a global level. And I know today a global summit started that was hosted by the United States today, which is Earth Day, looking at climate change and also looking at environmental justice. This administration has released a plan called the American Jobs Plan. As part of the American Jobs Plan, they're talking about at least $3 trillion being spent on infrastructure. What we have to do is make sure that the communities that have been left behind will not continue to be left behind. With this comes a program called Justice 40. With Justice 40, what they're saying is they're going to target communities that have been marginalized and left behind, EJ communities, and make sure at least 40% of the benefits go to those communities. It's 40% of these trillions of dollars will go to those communities. That's a lot of money. We have to be ready for that. We can't assume, if we look at what happened the last time there was a big stimulus plan, it didn't involve infrastructure, but you saw who got all the money. The big corporations got all the money and the people were left behind. But this is an opportunity for the communities to get the infrastructure that's needed that will provide good union paying jobs, but it'll also improve the quality of life of people living in EJ communities. And in order to do that with Justice 40, the WEJAC will be working on tools to measure who gets what. There will be a scorecard that will see who gets what. One of my concern is that from the ground level, from where everybody is in the community. The community has to make sure that it doesn't go to the state and then goes to the state's favorite engineers who's going to design the same old systems that keep failing every time they get money, and then they get rich and they move on, and the communities are still failing. So we're going to create an equity tool that's supposed to measure who gets what. But I'm also pushing, as my role on the WEJAC, pushing for guardrails to be put in place. But in order for me to do that, you need to tell me what issues you've seen so that we can make sure that's incorporated into this tool, and we can make sure those indicators are there to assure that those communities that have been left behind will no longer be left behind when it comes to infrastructure dollars. I tend to see that these infrastructure issues is just, again, goes back to what I started saying at the beginning. We talk about these racial covenants, that they have been reinforced by redlining. Because if you look at areas, I'm looking for a house now, and the house that I'm looking for in the part of Alabama, I'm moving to northern Alabama to really start doing research on wastewater technologies and hopefully to create some new technologies. But I can tell the house that's on the septic system versus one that's not on the septic system because of the price. It could be the same house, but the price of the house is cheaper. I can also tell which houses are in the Black community. Nice homes, same homes, but if they're in an area that's majority Black, they're cheaper than the same homes that are in other neighborhoods. These are the kinds of things that we have to dismantle. And this is, I think that America has gotten to a point where we're ready, and collectively, we first of all, we acknowledge that we have these problems, and second, we've acknowledged that it's time for us to do the work that's needed, that was not done before, to dismantle these situations so that we won't have Centervilles or Lowndes counties or Allensworth, or there's a story that's going to come out about a place in Westchester County, or the places that I've seen in Appalachia, or the places that are in Texas along the border in the colonias. There are places around the US that have these issues that never got the infrastructure in the first place. I have a colleague that serves with me on WEJAC that talked about over 30 communities in Alaska that have never gotten infrastructure. There are places in Puerto Rico, which is part of the United States, never gotten wastewater infrastructure. We have to address these issues. But the only way we're going to address these issues is, first of all, make them known, attend these meetings. Please go to the website for WEJAC, the White House Environmental Justice Advocacy Council. And I think our next meeting is on the 28th. Please make you can make public comments. It's open. Our meetings are open. You can make public comments, state your concerns. If you are unable to get on the agenda to make a public comment, because you can register for the agenda now, you can also submit them in writing and becomes a part of the official record. Because I think that now we have people that are concerned and would like to bring about the changes, but we have to be in a position to let them know where you are, so that, because there's so many communities that need help, but the communities that speak up hopefully will get it. And I assure you, my friends in Centerville and the St. Louis area, whatever I can do to shed light and to amplify the issues that are happening there around sanitation, I'm willing to do this, because we have to, it is time for us to end the type of inequality that exists when it's determined who gets infrastructure and who doesn't. And I think the American Jobs Plan is a good step in that direction, but we're going to have to be vigilant, and we have to be ready. So I'm going to end there. I know that there's a question and answer session coming up, but if there's anyone that would like to ask a question, I'm willing to entertain it.
Awesome. Yes. So if we have questions, we're going to abridge the agenda real quick because Catherine has another event to work on. Actually, she's very busy. So we appreciate her remarks tonight, but we're going to take questions right now. For people who have questions, you can put them in the chat, and in that way, we will go ahead and try to moderate and read those off. Okay, thank you. Someone had a question about what is WEJAC? So what is that acronym for?
It's the White House Environmental Justice Advocacy Council. The White House,
Very good.
yeah, the White House Environmental Justice Advocacy Council. So you should be able to Google it and go to the website to get information on it. If not, if there's, if someone reaches out to me, I'll make sure that you get the information. And it doesn't have a J on the end, so you won't find it. I think if you Google and put the J on it, but that's what it sounds like.
They said, thank you. Karen Robinson said, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Catherine before she has to do some more advocacy?
I would also suggest, while people are thinking about questions, get a copy of the American Jobs Plan. When you look it up, you can Google it online, and you will see their infrastructure, their dollars for infrastructure, and not just for water and wastewater, because there could be other infrastructure. Even when they built highways, I know in Montgomery, when they built highway, they tore up a Black community going through there building the highway, divided the communities. That's not unique to Montgomery. And then there are a lot of areas where Black communities are around, or poor communities are around the highways, and they're getting, the pollution that comes from people, trucks, and whatever going through there. So I would look to see what other kinds of infrastructure dollars might be there that the community could look at. And I know that a lot of these issues are also associated with housing too. So there are, I think you have at least, for the next 4 years, certainly for the next 2 years, that you have people that are interested in trying to solve these problems. And it's time for the community to help them, because they need the help of the community speaking up to be a part of it.
Okay, we have another question, and I'm going to go with them as I see them pop up. This is from Chris. Has there ever been efforts to hold sewer districts accountable?
I don't know, but I think, I think that's a double-edged sword. If you live in a sewage district that where, at least down here, where you got a sewage lagoon and septic tanks that were going to fail, you can't hold the poor towns accountable. I think you need to start holding the engineers and the firms accountable that are putting these in our communities and walking away rich. And then the sewer districts or whomever are left to solve the problems. And you can't, and one of the things I've been arguing with people about, they say, oh, they just need to be educated. They need to maintain, you can't maintain a limit. I mean,
come on.
There's certain cars that we won't even buy because we know they're not going to run right. There's certain appliances that you're not going to buy because if you buy it, you might as well go on and be ready to buy another one. So why do we let infrastructure that's so vital to us, to let people just put anything in our communities that we know is going to break down and do it just any kind of way, and they walk away? I think the engineering paradigm needs to change, because I think, again, that's another way of reinforcing these covenants. It's just another way of doing it.
That's great. That's great.
It would never go in a more affluent white community.
Absolutely. We have a question from Paula Carey Moore. She wants to know, what can we do locally while we're waiting on federal intervention?
Well, I think that one of the things you can do locally is start documenting and seeing what your problems are, and then look at that American Jobs Plan and see what's there that you need in your communities, and then go to your representatives and push for it and tell them this is what you want. I think we have to also make them responsible, and when they don't do it, call them out.
Okay, you heard that. We understand that, don't we, Paula Carey Moore? All right. Okay. Christy Lambert says, what are the most important points you would like people to understand about the American Jobs Plan?
Well, I think the most important point, the most important points are, first of all, that there's an emphasis on EJ communities, environmental justice communities, those communities that have been, they said, under overburdened and never have gotten the kind of resources that they need in terms of infrastructure. So that is very important. And then so understand and look up Justice 40, because Justice 40 means that at least 40%, this is the first time that there's ever been a proposal of this magnitude where 40% are going to go into those communities. So that's important, and make sure you talk to your representatives to make sure that your communities are hopefully included in the process of getting this help. In terms of water and sanitation, they're designating approximately $111 billion to deal with water and sanitation infrastructure. I think that's also important. So
Right.
tell your stories and magnify it, and talk to your representatives and make sure that they're representing you in Washington.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question just so we can stay on a point here and follow our program. But Saul Glist wants to know, he says that he's interested in your future research into sewage and waste management in Northern Alabama. What are you planning on working on next? Thank you for your words tonight.
Thank you. Well, I'm from the country, so my mama used to be. I remember one time when she didn't have syrup for us, so she took sugar and melted it, and made breakfast for us. We had syrup and biscuits that she had created. So I want to take that type of ingenuity that people have in rural communities, and I'm sure in all communities where we lack, and figure out we have people that can build a car. I know people in the country that there's a guy who works on a farm who only has a high school diploma, that the children that they sent to college can't run the farm because they don't know how to fix the equipment. I like to bring people like that to the table with folk at NASA who have created a way to treat wastewater in outer space to drinking water quality. I want to change the engineering paradigm, because sometimes we feel like the only people that know are the ones who've never been to these communities, don't know about these problems, and that's why they keep creating things that don't work. But I like to bring those two entities together, because in North Alabama, there is the Johnson Space Flight Center is there. Redstone Arsenal is there, which is going to be the home of the Space Force. And I believe that I can find some out-of-the-box thinkers there to work with us on creating wastewater treatment technology that we can use that can treat wastewater to drinking water quality like they do in outer space.
That's awesome. That's awesome. For the sake of time, I know that there are other questions, and we are going to have another question and answer session at the end when we have our panelists locally to speak. But one thing I will say is, Doug Miller, I know you asked whether or not there are any wastewater disparity hotspots in the Metro St. Louis area, Centerville, Illinois, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to have another question and answer session afterwards so we can get into it more. But more importantly, before you go, Edwards wants to know, what is the title of your upcoming book and when will it be released?
Well, my book has been released. The title of it is Waste: One Woman's Fight Against America's Dirty Secret. It was just selected by NBC as one of the top 12 books on environmental and climate justice. They released that yesterday, I guess in time for Earth Day. So yes, it's already available. You can go to Amazon or your independent bookstore, and a lot of bookstores are either stocking it or you can order it. And one of the places I wrote about in the book is Centerville.
All right, that you can't answer a question better than that. It's already at your local Amazon. Bam! Awesome. Thank you so much, Catherine. We really appreciate this. I tell you what, you generated so many questions. This internet almost caught on fire. So certainly we're gonna have to have you back.
I want
The
to. I
issue
want to
is
come back.
not going away.
I
The
want. I want to come back in
it
person after
hasn't gone
COVID.
anywhere.
I want to come back in person after COVID.
Oh,
And what's the name of that barbecue place?
oh, bandanas.
And I got to go to
Woo!
Bandanas. That's all I want. And then I
Oh,
can.
my.
Then
Oh,
whatever
my.
y'all want me to do, I'll do it. Just give me some bandanas.
It's on. It is on, and you got it. Thank you so much, Catherine Coleman Flowers. We really appreciate your words with us. And let's give her a hand, y'all. Give her a hand.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you.
Woo! Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. Take care now.
Okay, as we move on to the next part of the program, thank you too. And that's right. Get some Kansas City barbecue too. That's what Christy Lambert said. I won't pass that up either, Christy. Okay, so if you look in the chat, you can find links to the book Waste, and you'll also find links to that book in the program that you should have gotten a link to as well. You'll see all of the information for all of our panelists, all of our speakers, and all the information that we're going over right now. You'll be able to get links to being back in contact with each of these people, as well as being able to support the work that's going on in Centerville. So without further ado, I want to introduce Melissa Shaw, and she's going to introduce our next panel. And our next panel is going to bring home to you exactly what this looks like in the metro area, in particular the American Bottoms watershed in Centerville, Illinois. And we have a panel of persons who've been working in Centerville and a resident from Centerville who I've met personally. And she's very passionate, but she's serious. She's a very intelligent, passionate person. But the situation that she's dealing with her house, at first it was a miracle, and then it turned into a nightmare. And it should never have happened to anyone. It should never have happened to anyone. And now that you hear and have an opportunity to hear her story, then you see why it's important for people to speak up and join in the efforts. Because if this can happen to her, it can happen to anybody. Okay, so I'm going to introduce to you Melissa Shaw, and she's going to introduce you to the next panelist. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. Good evening.
Did I freeze?
You might have froze a little bit, but can you guys see me?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. All right. So if I ask our panelists to come on camera, thank you. All right. So good evening. My name is Melissa Shaw, and I'm the program assistant for EHOC with the work being done within Centerville, Illinois. This evening, I'll be moderating our panel with two phenomenal women, one working to seek justice for the residents in Centerville, Illinois, and another who is a resident who's impacted by the injustice. Nicole Nelson is the founder and executive director of Equity Legal Services Incorporated. Nicole litigates on behalf of and works with residents in Centerville, Illinois, who have had to contend with hazardous environmental conditions for decades. Nicole also works with citizens in surrounding communities who are vulnerable to similar conditions. Prior to her work at Equity Legal Services, Nicole previously worked in the nonprofit and public interest space, including counsel on impact litigation matters and at the Office of the Illinois Attorney General in the Sexually Violent Persons Bureau. Yvette Lyles is also on our panel. She's a disabled senior citizen who is a 27-year resident of Centerville, Illinois. Yvette previously was a nurse who cared for the St. Louis community, managed teams that ensure proper care to those in need, and a career woman who purchased a large ranch home back in December of 1994 as an American dream. Unfortunately, through it, it became her heartache. As she has been impacted like many residents in the Centerville community, and with flooding, sewage, and large home repairs needed. Alongside, she's questioned the health impact she has only begun to experience since she moved in her home in Centerville, Illinois. I welcome you both this evening into this discussion and work being done in the Centerville, Illinois area, the environmental injustice impacting you today, and what needs to be done to move forward. To start off this evening's panel, as we heard from Ms. Flowers, environmental injustice is something many of our communities are facing each and every day. In Centerville, Illinois, one of the poorest cities in the state of Illinois, as well as one of the poorest cities in the nation, Residents throughout the community are dealing with hazardous environmental conditions for over a decade. Nicole, can you speak a little to us and everyone this evening in regards to the work that is being done currently in Centerville, Illinois?
Sure. So hopefully everyone can hear me. Melissa, let me know if I'm not coming in clear. Sometimes that happens. So I think we get asked this question a lot, and we try to condense it as much as possible because there's a lot going on in Centerville, right? And so I feel kind of like naked here without my friend and colleague and partner in crime, Kalila Jackson, because we've been working together on this for the last 3 years. But yeah, I mean, there's litigation. So we have pending litigation in the Southern District of Illinois. Started out as requesting injunctive relief on behalf of 2 residents, asking for something basic that the residents have been asking really for decades, right? Which is to stop the flooding and the sewage, right? So that's ongoing litigation. And aside from that, we have a science team and a policy team in addition to our litigation team. And it's really just a group of people working alongside the residents to make it all stop, right? Kalila and I stepped in to the space because there was no one else there, right? Working with the residents. And so we didn't insert ourselves, a resident approached us. And so we got started working, but we have a science team that works to see how the flooding can be mitigated over time to stop the flooding, right? Because it's also a low-lying area, which contributes to it, but there's also a sewer system that's completely almost defunct, as well as a drainage system that hasn't been maintained for decades. We have residents who can date it back to early 1970s that they've been dealing with this, right? So we have that side of it, as well as the policy side, where folks from the NRDC team work on that behind the scenes, seeing what policies have affected this and allowed this to continue. And then we have interns who greatly contribute each summer from Harvard. There's a booklet on our site, and I believe on the residence site, that helps collect their stories. We have regular calls with the governor's office, as well as IPA that attend. The residents have 2 meetings per month in the evening. The IPA attends those to give updates, as well as it's our way of trying to hold them accountable to the residents in the community that they haven't done in a long time. So there's a lot of different things going on, as well as some other things in the irons in the fire. Lawyers don't like to tell all their secrets, right? So yeah, that's a brief overview.
Thank you. Thank you. Yvette, you have been a resident in the community for quite some time now. You've done what many people in America dream to do. You purchased a dream home, raised a family here, and paid off a mortgage to retire comfortably within your investments. I truly can only begin to imagine the heartache and frustrations you have each and every day when you're being impacted with consistent sewage and flooding within your area. Can you speak a little as to what it's been like from this time of you purchasing your home in Centerville, Illinois to now?
Yes, I can. And thank you, Melissa. Thank everyone for being here tonight. It's been an ordeal, and I'm trying to use the correct words properly, but if I could just be myself, it's been like living in hell. No one in America, especially the United States of America, who works and pays, or even if you don't work, it's passed down to your family, should have to deal with these kind of horrendous problems that not only destroy your home, but also put health issues onto us that are unnecessary because of the environment. No one should have to breathe in the fumes from fecal matter and urine floating around in their yards and in their homes, because we do have homes that this stuff come back in, destroying the structure of our homes. It's horrible. And if I could just say it myself, may God have mercy on the people who wasn't doing what they're supposed to do, because everybody needs to be held accountable, not only for me, but for all the residents who live here. We love the area for whatever reason it is, and these are our homes. And no one should have to move because they're not getting the basic rights. No one should have to move because the streets aren't taken care of. You don't have proper water, clean water, let me put it that way, coming into your home. It's horrible to drive up and down the street that's got a bunch of potholes in it. It's horrible to see flood waters. Every time it rains, your anxiety level is up high and you're constantly looking out. Oh, the water's coming up. We should leave. Should we leave? It's crazy. That's not normal. And really what's not normal is to have local politicians that we elect totally forgetting or acting as though this problem doesn't exist. Everyone needs to be held accountable. If we have to pay our property taxes every year for services we don't get, then the politicians and whoever else is involved should be held accountable. If I could turn back the hands of time, Lord knows I would have bought a house somewhere else. But I had a mother that was elderly and she was sick. And Frank Holton State Park is a beautiful attraction. And when you think of living down the street around the corner from Frank Holton State Park in a better neighborhood, only to find out it's not better at all. So I have a beautiful home. And as many people said, your home is nice, but it's just in the wrong place. Well, I'm sorry, it ain't like I can put it on a truck and roll it away. That's totally inappropriate. So we as human beings, we as citizens, no matter how the connotation is about being the poorest place, we deserve what's rightfully ours, our violation of our human rights of having our basic needs met. Not having clean water, not being able to flush your toilet, not being able to get out your house because it's flooding, is horrible conditions for anyone to live in. We have health issues. I'm gonna say it again because they're respiratory. My children experienced it. I experienced it. I'm now an asthmatic. You don't become an asthmatic when you get old. That's environmentally induced. It's wrong and it needs to stop. And we have been crying out and calling and trying to get people held accountable, all these different entities with no response. Well, guess what? No longer will we stand by quietly. And we're not angry. We're just human beings who want what's right for us. Everybody in our surrounding communities have it. Why shouldn't we? Their homes not being destroyed from contaminated water coming into their homes and getting sick and drinking it. What bothers me is that last year, all of this really bothers me because it's not right. Last year, I saw them going around opening up the water things, flushing the fountains, trying to get some, I guess, chlorine to the area and some other things that we didn't know we had. They didn't call us with a boil order. They didn't let us know on television or anything. And I asked them, why are you guys opening up these water hydrants for a force like this? You all have contaminated water going to your home. Well, the previous year I was in the hospital and these doctors had me on infectious disease control with IVs going in both arms, asking me, had I been visiting an indigenous area? Have I been somewhere where there's no water supply? What? No, I've been at home. Do you know the impact of hearing we had contaminated water coming through our pipes at our home put on me? I'm like, I was infected because of what I'm drinking. I was infected because of what I'm using on my body. This is crazy. No one should have to go through that. Not me, not my neighbors, or no one in any community, especially Centerville. We were once a booming place. Yeah, we're not anymore, but guess what? We're a community with citizens in it. We should be treated as such. It's inhumane to deny people their human rights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Impactful. Nicole, we've heard her speak in regards to what she's experienced. Is this something the individuals, you and the individuals who are working through this project, can you pinpoint this to maybe a particular time, maybe when this started to occur, maybe projects, maybe the I-255 expansions or other developments in the area that might have caused stormwater runoff? And the second question I have too, as well as, there's low-lying land areas in this part of Illinois. Is everyone in this area equally experiencing the same thing that they're experiencing in Centerville? Is Belleville, Cahokia, and O'Fallon, Illinois experiencing the same things that these residents are experiencing in the demise of their sewage infrastructure?
So to answer the first part of your question, Melissa, yes and no to pinpointing times, right? So what research finds is that it's difficult, right? So different residents moved in at different times. And so for some, they started experiencing problems as soon as they moved in the 1970s. We have residents, they moved in the 1970s, and within 6 to 8 months, they started experiencing sewage coming up in their bathtubs, right? But also remark that the place, Centerville, was beautiful at the time and very well maintained and was very diverse. A lot of residents more white than Black, right? White flight, as we know, started in the Centerville area around the late 80s, early 90s. So there's that. And then there's folks who said around 90s, the 93 areas for folks who are from Illinois, there was a historic flood in 93. And for some folks, that was the marker when things went, downhill. And as you mentioned, 255, which is an interstate over on this side and, enters into Missouri, was also a marker for some people. Harding Ditch, which runs through St. Clair County, which is where Centerville is located, is also an issue that residents have remarked. What we have found on the team is anything that a resident remarks and has observed always pans out to be true, right? We just have to chase it down with documentation and evidence. So all of these are different markers where different residents have experienced worsening conditions over time. To your next point about, are there worse areas than others? Yes, so I live in St. Clair County, the same county as Centerville, right? I'm right up the road in O'Fallon. I don't experience flooding and sewage overflows. I live in a wider area, right? So areas like O'Fallon, Swansea, Fairview Heights, these are wider areas, they don't have these issues. And I'm always very candid and blunt that they wouldn't, they won't, right? Because they are wider areas. And there are municipalities that surround Centerville, that are contiguous to Centerville, that are predominantly Black, that have these issues and have historically had these issues, like East St. Louis, Washington Park, Cahokia. They have bad issues, similar issues, and they've reached out to us. Their issues aren't as systemic as Centerville. Centerville is by worse, suffers the worst, right? It doesn't have to be raining for them to have sewage standing in their ditches to come in their homes. Rain makes it worse, but it doesn't have to be happening. For these other municipalities, they do have these issues. We try to help them as much as we can. Of course, capacity is an issue. Right now, I'm the only attorney at my firm. Kalila, who's also on the project, who is with EHOC, she definitely has her plate full. She also does fair housing work. In addition to the Centerville work alone is a full-time job, right? We have about 70 residents that we work with and about 30, 35 who are active on the committee. That Ms. Yvette is also an active committee member, as well as just voted in as a secretary of the board of directors. Because they're becoming a nonprofit. Centerville is definitely they bear the brunt of it, unfortunately, because of their location. It is, like you said, considered in the American bottoms, but the low-lying area certainly doesn't help, but the regular lack of maintenance over literally decades has exacerbated what was an avoidable issue, which has now become a crisis.
That, we talk about lack of maintenance or lack of things, that provisions that probably should have been done. Local leaders have been braced of these challenges you and many residents are having for the past decade. Some are declaring to help find new solutions to resolve these infrastructure issues, while others are unaware of the extent of sewage and drinking water challenges, and declaring that this being something the federal government would have to assist with financially, as this is too large for the city. What traction have you seen from local leaders in ensuring you and your community residents are moving in the right direction?
Well, Lord help me, Jesus. Minimal. And when I say minimal, I mean dredging a ditch that hadn't been dredged over in at least 15 years. That ditch had not been dredged. And that's not Harding Ditch. Harding Ditch is closer towards 255. You got to do more than dredge a ditch. And our politicians evading us and not wanting to answer phone calls or not meeting with us says a lot about what they think about the citizens here in Centerville, Illinois. If we could hold everyone accountable for every action, Lord have mercy is all I can say for the people we had in charge. But this is a new day. It's new times. We can't keep doing what we were doing before. So if they don't get the actions going soon, there will be some more actions, but positive.
Nicole, I kind of circle back to you. I mean, we have local leaders, we have more of your state and federal leaders. Can you speak to any support that you've seen or entities that are working from any leaders in the community to help make a change for this area?
No. Yep, no. So So what you find is they say all the right things in the media, right? And so that's what's happened, right? Is Centerville has generated a lot of media, and that's through the mobilization, through the work and the mobilization of the Centerville Resident Committee, and the officials who have come to the table unwillingly. That's been through pure shaming, media shaming, right? Because like Ms. Yvette says, before they've been doing nothing literally for decades, like minimally 40 years, right? There's a resident who is, I think she's 92 years old, and she has 2 spots in her backyard that are just pure sewage comes out in the back of her yard. And you know who I'm talking about, Ms. Yvette, she lives on your street and she's 2 doors down from you. That's been there for years, decades. And it's not like they don't know, right? The residents, way before we came along, they were calling the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, which is short for IEPA. I saw someone in the chat ask what that was. They were calling the Public Health Department, and all of these different agencies. The irony is that these local officials, who are the mayors, the township supervisors, they sit on the boards of these different parts. So it's not like they didn't know, they knew. And these different agencies were coming out and they would say, wow, like we would do open records requests and we could see their communication. Wow, it's really bad out there in Centerville. It's the worst I've ever seen. Look at all the sewage just everywhere on the ground. They would take pictures and they would text it to each other. And their answer would be like, okay, send out an extra truck to extra mosquito spray this summer. Because the mosquitoes are notoriously horrendous in Centerville. Right, like the residents will tell you that the bites are huge and they burn. One resident took their grandchild to an emergency room because they didn't know what it was. It was so bad, right? Or they don't let their grandchildren or children go outside in the summers, and they keep the windows down and the air conditioners cranked up because they know they can't open the windows in the summer because the mosquitoes are that bad in Centerville because of the sewage, the standing sewage that they feed on. So I say all this to say, local politicians have known, they haven't done anything until this local media has shamed them into coming to the table. And even, in the local media, it looks like they're engaging the governor. That's through the resident committee and our team's mobilization. The residents sent a letter to the governor last September, was it late August? Yeah. And asked them to come to the table and said, hey, this has been going on for years, do something about it. And then they brought the IEPA to the table and they were like, okay. And that's how we got IEPA to sit on the call on the meetings, and the governor's office engaged. That's not through the state reps like Chris Belt and Toya Greenwood, who have been completely useless. You have to excuse my language, I'm very candid. They've been completely useless. They don't answer the residents' calls. They don't attend meetings that they've been invited to. Same with the mayor of Centerville, equally useless. So no, they haven't been responsive, and the only responsiveness you may see in the media is due to shame, right? Like you come to the table when you don't have any other choice but to come to the table. So
outside of these local leaders or the leaders, recently we've seen initiatives coming from agencies such as IEPA. I think somebody asked, that's the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, for almost $1 million grant geared towards reducing stormwater runoff and minor sewage system infrastructure problems. FEMA for programs such as BRIC for $22 million in grant funds geared towards communities such as Centerville and helping aid and repair and place sewer systems. Nicole, do you feel that this is the right course of action for next steps in aiding long-term fixes for the infrastructure problems in Centerville? Alongside, what are some of your concerns that come from these grants, such as these?
I'm sorry, were you referencing the BRIC funding or the watershed program?
Both.
Oh yeah, I mean, you probably have the wrong person on the panel tonight because I'm very blunt. No, I do not. And I should clarify, right? Like Senator Duckworth's office is the exception. Like they have been liaisons. They reached out to us, right? And said, hey, how can we help? We've seen these. So they've been working with us and the residents for 1.5 years. And then recently Senator Dick Durbin's office as well. So with the exception of those 2 offices, they've been extremely helpful. The BRIC funding, it is not helpful, but it's a really good example of a municipality and its officials that don't understand the problems of its community, right? For example, the BRIC application, its funding allows for direct pairs to residents' homes, right? They didn't apply for that. One of the things that we took stock of when the residents formed a committee in August 2019, we asked them to list their top priorities so that we as a team could address those. So the way this works is the residents tell us what to do, not the other way around. This is completely community centered. We don't apply for grants. We don't do anything unless the residents say, this is what we want you to do. Then Khalil and I, we take it to the rest of the team members and we say, this is what they voted on. This is what we're doing. They listed their top 13 priorities. One of them, the top 3 was, we want to repair our homes. We're tired of repaying for hot water heaters 5 or 6 times, furnaces literally 6 or 7 times over 10 years, flooring so bad that we can't sleep in our bedroom, we have to sleep in the dining room, right? So that's one of the reasons why they have a community home repair fund now, completely independent through anything but themselves. It's through the resident committee, it's through grant funding, and it's open to any Centerville resident. Like, this is something that they've done on their own because nobody else was doing it for them. And so that shows how disconnected the officials are, right? That they didn't even apply for this funding, make this available through this BRIC funding, right? But aside from that, the BRIC funding doesn't address any of the stormwater issues. It only addresses sewage issues. And even then it's patchwork fixes, which they've been doing for decades. If we look through the paperwork, which our team has, and the stormwater issues they go hand in hand, right? As long as the stormwater issues are there, it's going to infiltrate the system and still continue to cause all these issues and flooding. And so it's just a really good illustration of how disconnected they are from the issues and how they just want to be able to say, hey, we got this $22 million, we're fixing it, don't worry about it. You don't need to continue writing these stories, we're doing our job, right? The watershed program, the IEPA knows how I and the rest of our team and the residents feel. It's a voluntary program, and it takes 1 to 2 years. I think I'm being conservative on that, 3 years to implement, and then it's voluntary, and it takes 10 years to really see a result. The residents don't have 10 years. Minimum age is about 60 for those who are on the committee. Others, the most are 70s and 80s. The lady I said was 92. They don't have 10 years. Heck, they don't have 3 years. They have yesterday though, right? And that's what we continue to impress upon them, is that you need the residents at the table so you can hear the urgency of this, because they don't have this many years that you're including in your process for these fixes that aren't actual resolutions.
Yvette, hearing that as a resident, how does that, what is your concerns with being left out of these discussions when this is impacting you? You're living in this each and every day. And then also beside that, if it was not for the parties who are working with you actually in the res, like Nicole and Lila and EHOC and so forth, do you feel that you would really be receiving any of these results that you're seeing today or any movement forward?
Melissa, no, we would not. Not I nor anyone who lives in Centerville. We will not see anything that's going on. Had these people had not come together and cared enough to help us get this publicity on and get help, because one person can't do it by themselves. You need a bunch of people. One citizen couldn't do anything. We don't need any more ghosting anything. We need visibility. We need accountability. We need transparency. We need to know that your word is bond. And I think somewhere along the line, some people don't think that. And when you're advocating for anyone on any great cause, you don't forget anything, because the main result is to have us to have a better environment to live in, where we're not sick and our grandchildren or our children won't be eaten up by mosquitoes and all kinds of things coming in the neighborhood. We just want to live normal. So I do believe that the platform we have now, I'm so grateful and thankful for it. I thank you all very much, because this is hard work that we by ourselves, we wouldn't have been able to get it started. Yes, there will be notification. Notification meaning public awareness, let's just say United States awareness, because that's where it's gone now. It went from being just us citizens talking and complaining and calling these different entities with no response to all of a sudden now we got response. And I pray to God that we do get the help that we're supposed to get, and praying with my fingers crossed. And I'm an old person, so I'm gonna tell you, old folks say, if they ain't working, get them out, put some fresh blood in there and let them get the job done. And that's just what I'm feeling as an older person, a senior citizen in our community. Like she said, it was beautiful at first. It really was. And it shouldn't be left to fall apart because of the basic things not being provided. Thank God for the help we're getting. We appreciate you all. Don't think we don't, because we do.
How would And either one of you guys can answer this, or both probably answer this, you know. What do we, moving forward, what do you want to see done? I mean, Yvette, if you wanted to start, or Nicole, but what do you want to see done for Centerville?
Oh my God. Just remove the old system that you got, drainage system, sewage system, water line pipes that's supplying who knows what to our homes. And if my dog won't drink the water, that's a sign I shouldn't drink the water either, okay? It's not just me, it's everybody in our area. We need to be able to live within normal, some form of normalcy. What we've been going through is not normal. It's totally inappropriate and it's not normal. So we got new drains, street drains. We got this water system put in, infrastructure and everything correctly. That is not a fly-by quick fix. And as Ms. Catherine Flower said, it'll break down again and we're stuck with the same problem. So what we're dealing with is an on-standing long-term problem. We don't need any quick patches or band-aids on it. We need the whole thing removed and rebuilt correctly. That'll last for another 50 or 100 years if this is how they do things in this area.
Nicole?
Yeah, I largely agree with everything Miss Yvette said. Like, that's what we've all been pushing for. And I think the other main thing is centering the community, right? Like, I think that's the major thing we continue to butt heads with everybody, is that this is happening to Centerville residents, so they should be at the table, right? Like, that shouldn't be a question. And yet that continues to be the thing that is the thing that's an issue. Like, why isn't there a Centerville person in the room? Why isn't there a Centerville resident on this call? Why aren't they allowed, right? Because it's happening to them, so why are you making policy and decisions without them, right? So yeah, I mean, that, in addition to exactly what Ms. Yvette said, no more patch fixes, because that's literally been happening for decades. And when you look at the paperwork, the open records requests, they've spent about probably millions at this point on patchwork fixes when they could have probably built a new infrastructure years ago, but instead have decided it wasn't worth it, right? Or they didn't want to do the hard work to figure out how to make that happen, but they deserve it because, like Ms. Yvette said, almost all the residents we work with, they don't have a mortgage and they don't want to leave, and they shouldn't have to. They shouldn't have to even be asked that question, right? Everyone's living where they want to live in their homes. The officials are living where they want to, right? And so should the residents who decided to live here, work hard, buy their homes, retire. They shouldn't have to worry about when it rains, if it's going to invade their home, or if they're fearful of drowning, which so many are because, you know, they can't swim or for whatever reason. So I think everything Ms. Yvette said, plus keeping the community at the center.
Thank you. Now I am for our time, because there seems to be questions. Some of them I was able to answer as we went, to give a little bit of clarity, but you know, to allow individuals to ask questions and you guys be able to answer them. Before we go, Nicole, can you speak to how everybody who's listening can help with the work in Centerville, Illinois? I know that there was a link posted for Left Bank that was posted in regards, but how can people help?
Our big push now is Flooded and Forgotten. That's where you can find everything about the resident. Centerville Citizens for Change is the name of their committee. And as we always tell people, they're mobilizing, and they have their own community repair fund. So right now they're in the middle of doing assessments of homes, and they need money to actually repair the homes. And so that's what they're in the middle. It's completely independent of any kind of agency or anything. And that's what they really need. They have foundations that are eroded, right? You know, people who've actually had to move out of their homes because they can't live there, right? So that's the big push right now, is getting them money. They have a subcommittee that's over that application process, and they have a licensed contractor who's assessing the homes. And then the subcommittee makes the decisions on who are the eligible folks, as long as they meet the criteria of being a homeowner and a resident of Centerville. So that's the big push. The other thing is we always really try to impress upon folks that as long as the officials see that folks outside of Centerville are also invested in this issue and are calling, right, and writing or emailing, or asking the media what's going on, are you looking into this, that really helps too, right? Because this is not just a Centerville issue, should be everybody should be concerned about this, right? So calling Common Fields of Cahokia or Senator Chris Belt, I love to plug Senator Chris Belt and Latoya Greenwood because they're so non-responsive. So I love to plug them whenever I can. Same thing with the mayor of Centerville.
Yeah,
Shout out to Mary Ace Jackson, who never likes to answer the phone or return a call or email. Same thing with township supervisor as well, Curtis McCall Sr. All of them should be held accountable because they're all responsible for this mess. And as many people who can call and ask them why or send letters, or the more, and same thing with governor's office, the IEPA. The more people that are concerned outside of Centerville, the more pressure it puts on them to do the right thing.
Well, I definitely want to thank you, both of you. You guys will, if you guys will stay, right? We will have questions and answers, but I definitely want to say to everybody who's listening, we don't have to look to Flint, right? We have people who are in need right here in the metropolitan area. So, listen to the things that Nicole and them said, and being able to help, and if you have the opportunity to drive through the area and just look, especially on a summer day, you can see and smell and everything and really see what is going on in this community that is unacceptable by all means. For that, Will, I will turn this back over to you for question and answers. Thank you, ladies.
thank you.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
And I'll be honest with you, this is probably the most intense, passionate, but yet serious conference we have had. And I don't think you need to apologize for anything that you said, Nicole Nelson, because it is true anyhow. It's the truth. And I'll be honest with you, it's 2021. There is no way in the world that Centerville residents should be living like it's Jumanji. And I've been there, and it is. I mean, you can't even grow tomatoes there.
Right.
Come on. Everybody knows tomatoes grow almost anywhere. And if a tomato won't grow, that lets you know that the soil is crying out, that it is messed up. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's so many, the environment itself is saying the same thing Miss Yvette is saying. Man has messed this up, and man gonna fix this too. So there was one question. I want to get that out from the audience. And it was, are there any, this was from Jacqueline Buck Horton. She wants to know, are there any pending cases?
Yes, so EHOC and ELS, we filed a case in federal court last June on behalf of 2 Centerville residents. I had to close my eyes. I always call them Mr. Fuse and Mr. Bennett. That's not going to mean anything to anybody in this crowd. Cornelius Bennett and Early Fuse. Mr. Bennett is 70 and Mr. Fuse is 80. And Mr. Fuse lost his 5th basement wall to the flooding that happened in January 2020. And so we filed that in June of last year. Khalil and I are counsel on that. That's pending. And then our partners at Earth Justice filed an informal complaint before the Illinois Pollution Control Board that same month in June of last year, and more to come.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Nicole. Let's see. And Crystal Avery Morris says, when the dog won't drink the water, you know it's bad. And I got 2 dogs right now looking at me like, what are you doing on this thing? And I promise you, if they won't drink the water, I am definitely not drinking. There's no doubt about it, because I have seen them drink some nasty water. You heard me?
Yeah.
So let me say this too. I want to really say to the panelists that in your heart of hearts, what you've just heard, this is not a story. This is the life that people are living right now. That when Miss Yvette and other residents moved to Centerville, they literally knew what they were doing. It was a good deal for them at the time. These things that happened to their house, no one could have predicted that was going to happen. Certainly, no one could have predicted that was going to happen. When you go to Centerville, when you look at the houses and you see how nice they're kept, you don't know the story, because they've been torn down and rebuilt, walls, one wall at a time, the HVAC as many times as the insurance could handle it. Then they had to do it on their own. I mean, when I'm saying like rebirth of a house like 8 times, I'm saying, like, seriously.
Yeah,
Like,
you
when they
you
get
have
any,
residents who have taken their their systems and taken it and put them from the floor and
Build them up.
put them up top. So instead of
Yeah.
having the piping on the floor for, why can't I think of the word, Miss Yvette? Because Miss
Instead of
Sharon,
having your a platform.
the vending,
You
thanks, the
build a
vending
Elevator.
platform
systems.
to put your
So
washer and dryer,
because the
your
water
hot
was
water
flooding
tank.
it so much, they took it, they rewired it all and put their vending systems up top, which they know is not necessarily the most safe way, but it's also, they got tired of it flooding them out every time. So many Centerville residents have put their vending systems on the ceilings. They raise up their furnaces. They put them up almost near the attics. Like, they do a lot of things to survive. Mhm.
yes, yes, absolutely. And the houses, 85% of them are really beautiful, but they had to go through a lot to keep them beautiful. That's the issue about it. We're not talking about somebody who just decided they just wanted to live in a bad situation. No, the house is beautiful from the get-go. And if you go look at it right now, it's still beautiful, but you just don't understand all the money they could have been using to
That's
go to
right.
Jamaica. They end up having to use it to build the house back up.
Right.
The whole retirement. We're talking about people who
Yeah.
retire from Husband Refrigeration and Emerson and nurses and all these people who have retired, and all the what they could have had as an inheritance, or they could have been building onto their house. They had to use it to put in another HVAC. Oh man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if
And
that
more
was you?
than
So
one. I'm sorry, Will. Sometimes we've
no,
had to
keep
put
going,
in,
Yvette.
we've had to put in, not only myself, but some of my other citizens in the community, we've had to put in 3-4 HVAC systems, 3-4 washer dryers, 3-4, 5-6 hot water tanks. It's crazy. It's totally unbelievable. And we can't keep going like this. We can't.
No way. No way. No way. So I want to challenge all of our viewers today, all of the people who are listening to the story, who heard from Catherine Flowers, who've heard from Yvette, who've heard from Nicole, to also take a look at the program and look at the other information that we put in there as links for you to see, and also look at the information where you can also support the work that's going on through Equity Legal Services and for the Citizens Council. You'll see links for each one of those. And I encourage you, before you look at one more commercial about a sad animal or someone in Africa suffering, that you take a look. And I'm telling you, I know as God lives and I live, that you should support what's going on in the metro area first. I ain't saying don't help them, but I'm telling you, the people in Centerville are living the same way. And they take time just like you did, just like we do. They put it in, and they had an expectation that's been cut off just because someone decided that they don't really care about what's going on with the people on that side of town. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I know it's not easy because nobody wants to come on and say something, and in the middle of it realize that you once again are being re-victimized by the very memory of what has happened. I mean, as soon as you start talking about it, it's unreal. It's unreal. I want to thank you. I want to encourage you guys to do some self-care, and to and thank you, Nicole, and for your insight and your work. You know more than anyone that it takes absolute will to resolve this from the beginning to the end. And it's no time to play games or deal with people's emotions or feelings when the truth is the truth anyhow. And so I just want to thank you for the resilience that you have brought to the community. And because they gotta live. They're going to be resilient because nobody's going to just lay down. But I want to thank you, Nicole, for what you and Kalila Jackson have done to also help them to try to bring light to this plight as they just try to live like everybody else in this country. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone in the program. I thank you for all the time that you've given to us. I do encourage you to fill out the survey. We are going to choose, I think we said maybe the first 50, or at least the first 50, if not the first, well, at least the first 50. I know there's at least 100 attendees on here that we're going to give books to for waste. If you fill out the information on the evaluation, we're going to buy you a book and send it to you, okay? Just give us your contact information, how we can get that to you on the evaluation form that's a part in the link that you should see, and also should be in the program, but it definitely should be in the link that you see. And we're gonna give away some of those books to people so that they can see. And that book also does showcase what's going on in Centerville. We wanna thank everyone for your time tonight. I wanna thank all of our sponsors, all of our program participants. And I want to give a special shout out to Nancy Jordan and her company, Biz by Faith, who also helped to put together the program along with Melissa and Marissa Cohen. And I just want to say they did a great job. If you got a chance to take a look at the electronic program, I think it does a great job of giving people more information that would be available within this hour and a half. You have access to a lot more information because the program is actually alive in that it gives you more links to see what's going on right now and to find out what has also been happening in the past, okay? So at this point in time, I wanna thank the History Museum. I wanna thank our interpreters. You guys have done a great job. If you see interpreters, they've been making it happen. They've been making it happen the whole time. And once again, we're putting out the conference feedback link to everyone right now. And if you would go ahead and fill that out, and we would be happy to read that feedback and to send you your book if you wanted the first 50. You know, that's a 50-50 chance because there was only 109 people, which actually is a really big turnout. But that means at least half the people gonna get a free book. I think that's awesome. Oh, yes. Man, the only thing that could happen better right now is if I sang a song. Man, do I have time? How can we have peace in the Middle East if there's none at home? How can we have understanding in our land if there's none in the woman? Hey, and there's none in the man. How can we heal the wounds of the world if we cannot heal our own? And where does this peace on earth begin if not in our homes? Where does this peace on earth begin if not in our homes? They want peace in their homes in Centerville. Let's pray and act for peace in the homes of the people of Centerville. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. I'm so grateful for the African American History Initiative at the museum to be able to work with you guys this year. I'm new to the museum and I'm just like so energized by this, and this was just like an amazing program, and I look forward to working with you all in the future. Thank you. I just want to say thank you again to the panelists for sharing your stories and your efforts. We are just so grateful to be able to record this and have this as a living program that will be shown on our YouTube channel for hopefully many years to come. So thank you all again, and thank you, Jamie and Debbie, for your wonderful service tonight. And thank you, Will, just for coming to us with this partnership and starting a new beginnings with the African American History Initiative.
And I'm looking forward to more programs too.
Many, many more. And I just also wanted to tell the participants, if you enjoyed today's discussion on May 6th, we'll be talking about how our living and community health, our environments, how they impact infant and maternal mortality. So we'll be looking at how the stressors from our environment, stressful things like what we talked about tonight, how they impact how birthing people are able to carry and give birth to our babies and essentially impact our communities for years to come. So that would be Thursday, May 6th at 6:30 p.m. Also, if you would like to become a member at the museum, there will be a tab that will open in your Zoom browser after you exit off of tonight's program. So feel free to fill out that survey and indicate if you would like to be a member of the museum or the African American History Initiative. So we just wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight.
Thank you.